Good morning, everybody. I wanted to make a quick video to kind of touch on some of the changes between the first preview and the second preview to go over maybe some of the things that you may have missed if you don't read through all the patch notes. Just want to see how things are coming along with the progress and what's going into the Epic Destinies. So we'll get started. Again, I'm not going to go through every single Epic Destiny. I'm just going to go through the changes and what's different now about them. Fury of the Wild is pretty much exactly the same as it was before. This was one of the best Destinies previously, and it still is. So this tree, amazingly strong, really good, and pretty much no changes to Fury of the Wild. Shiradi Champion, on the other hand, received a massive overhaul in changes. First, Prism is no longer 7% chance to deal a D100, now it's a 15% chance on ranged attack to deal 3 D100s plus 200 extra damage of a random type, and spells are 30% chance as opposed to 14% to deal the same amount. Obviously, this is a quintupling of the base damage that comes up and doubling the chance. I don't expect this to stay this strong because it's kind of crazy right now, but that has been increased. Additionally, Stay Good and Stay Frosty are following a similar vein, where they used to do a D100. Now it is that same thing, 15% chance, and if you put 3 points into the tree, it's 3 D100s plus 300, or 3 D100s plus 300. Significantly higher amount of damage, makes it way more impactful, very, very, very strong. Additionally, Fey Form, which previously only gave Cold Iron DR and Spell Power, which wasn't good for all characters, now also gives Helplessness damage, which is obviously extremely good. So very good adjustment and change here. And then finally, you have the ability Inexorable Advance. This is the big for 30 seconds attack where you get to keep your Archer's Focus stacks up while you're attacking. This has been adjusted so that now it also adds extra damage onto each of your attacks and spells. 100% of the time you attack with them, you get 3 D100s cold and light damage that scale with your range power. I think this also applies to spells. Actually, I don't know if it applies to spells, but it definitely applies with range power. And your range attacks in the state have a 100% chance to proc Double Rainbow, and Double Rainbow is this effect right here, where it can do literally anything. It can spawn animals, it can do damage, it can heal you, it can do all sorts of weird stuff. So with all that being said, Shiradi Champion is extremely powerful and is tearing monsters asunder. So look forward to seeing some good stuff out of Shiradi Champion. These changes are fantastic. Like I said, some of it's going to be brought down a little bit, but the consistency has been improved and it's a lot better. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this used to be lesser vigor and now it's greater vigor on a charge system. I still don't think it's good enough. I think it should be regenerate, but I don't know. Or maybe this should be like 2 extra charges of Wild Empathy, because unless you have Wild Empathy, you probably aren't going to be taking Healing Spring. Next, Divine Crusader. Divine Crusader is pretty much exactly the same. A lot of the stuff in the tree is pretty core. A couple things that changed is the Divine Smite here. Instead of applying every 30 seconds, the heal whenever you smite an enemy heals you and all your allies. Now it's every 10 seconds. That cooldown is coming down. The healing also came down a little bit, but still, it's a pretty substantial amount, so it's pretty nice. And then finally, there was this big horse charge attack where you would mount up a horse. That was your big epic moment. You'd trample over guys, and it would stun them and do stuff. Yeah, that has been replaced with Beckon Divinity, which is a huge epic moment, and what it does is it grants all your allies the buff Divinity, which makes it so when they take damage, they actually heal instead and makes them crowd control immune. However, it also resurrects all dead allies. So if you're in a raid, if you're in a group party, and maybe there's some Hezru champion that teleports on top of you guys and it chaos hammers half your party, and you're like, oh crap, half people are dead, you slam Beckon Divinity, it's a full resurrection on everybody, and when they come back, everyone has this Divinity buff where they get health back whenever they take damage. I think the healing portion is a little low. I would like to see that toned up, but overall, the ability has a lot of good theming, and so that's why I would like to see the healing portion turned up, just because one of the problems with this is that if people aren't dead, it's not as exciting, and you kind of don't want to hope for people to die as Divine Crusader. When you have so many healing options, you're kind of working against that, so I think that would be a good adjustment and change. Now, moving on, let's talk about Legendary Dreadnaught. Now, Legendary Dreadnought was already a tree that was pretty strong. However, there were some adjustments that were put in here. Number one, Life and Death now also gives you repair amplification, because of course it should. Additionally, there was a extra ability that gave you bonuses to your critical damage whenever you were trying to critically hit stuff. Now it's based on power attack and precision. If you have power attack, you get more damage. If you have precision, you get more hit chance. So it's kind of neat play right there. Additionally, Action Boost Tactics, not displaying properly here, but it is 3, 6, and 9, so you can get +9 to your tactical DCs when you use this Action Boost, which is a massive boost. So you're going to see people using that for sure. And then as we look up to the top here, the last adjustment was Action Hero. It says 20 seconds. It's actually 40 seconds, and it does function as 40 seconds in game. It's just, I guess it's a typo on this one. And these buffs for 40 seconds on top of that, the dodge bonus that's 15% also goes above your cap. So if you are a heavy armor character and you have 3% dodge, now you have 18%. And if you're somebody who is like a monk or a rogue who's rocking 30 to 35, now this brings you all the way up to about 50% dodge. This action boost is absolutely insane. And it lasts for 40 seconds. It is so much damage. I don't even understand how this is in the game, but anyway, here we are. It's pretty good. Oh, and the Dread Mantle, it used to apply a terror stack every 3 seconds. Now it's supposed to apply 5 terror stacks every 6 seconds, which is more terror stacks, but they proc less often. The benefit of this, though, is that there's an effect, Dread, which does damage. It now does a significantly higher amount of damage per terror stack, which is not displayed here, which is very substantial, that immediately noticeable, and it means that you can immediately, as long as you get the terror effect, you can start stacking vulnerability for free from Dreadnaught, making it very strong. Now, Grandmaster of Flowers had a couple adjustments. One of the first adjustments is that there's this key casting ability, this key projection. That's just gone, so instead you have either Orchid Blossom or Drifting Lotus as your options. And again, you can upgrade Orchid Blossom or Drifting Lotus, and these things actually work. However, there are a few new things coming up at the top here. First, there's an ability called Everything is Nothing. You may have never heard about this ability, but what it does is you effectively use some ki and you try to tear everything asunder and try to erase enemies from the universe. This is an existing ability in the Grandmaster of Flowers Epic Destiny, and it has been brought back here, so you can just make Everything is Nothing, all to your heart's content. However, there's a brand new ability that actually makes Everything is Nothing look bad, and that is Split the Soul. So Split the Soul is your big epic moment, and for 30 seconds, it splits you into a light warrior and a dark warrior. So you have kind of like 2 soul warriors that fight alongside you. The dark warrior, every time you attack, has a 5% chance to banish something from the multiverse with no save. So a 5% instant kill. You vorpal them, they're dead no matter what their health is. Very, very, very strong. The light warrior grants you concealment, incorporeality, dodge, and max dodge, which is a lot of defensive stats. However, if you are a monk and you have one of these 2 philosophies, it actually doubles the effect, either giving you a 10% chance to banish for dark monks, or 50% concealment, 50% incorporeality, and 50% dodge for 30 seconds, which is just like... So, yeah, you're going to see a lot of monks running around. This is a very powerful ability, and like I said, this literally puts Everything is Nothing to shame, because Everything is Nothing kills 6 targets. I can get way more than 6 targets in 30 seconds with a 10% chance to instant kill. So, very, very, very cool. You'll see a lot of monks running around Grandmaster Flowers soon. Then, moving on to Shadowdancer. Shadowdancer hasn't really experienced that many changes. One of the main changes is that Shadow Weaponry now also includes double shot, as it didn't before. And I think that's it. I think that's the only change. Everything else is pretty much exactly the same. So, again, already a really strong tree. Shadowdancer is going to be extremely high for single target damage, definitely going to be overshadowing a lot of other things, and some of the sneak attack bonuses are pretty tremendous. And as well, there's an ability that is missing from here that's in the patch notes that you can go ahead and read. I'll have a link to all the notes below. That is basically a debuff for monsters that allows you to deal heavy amounts of damage, you and all your allies, so it's very, very good. Alright, Unyielding Sentinel. There were a lot of changes to Unyielding Sentinel. Let's quickly go over some of the changes. First off, you had Celestial Mandate. Celestial Mandate used to be a attack that would just grab some hate and give you a massive buff. Now it's a frontal cleave. So it actually cleaves monsters and hits all of them, gives them all the hate, and does exactly the same thing. Slightly longer cooldown, but the cleave means it's very easy to hold multiple targets, specifically large groups of constructs. This is the tank's tool. Highly recommend it. It's going to be a great ability. You're going to love this as a tank. Additionally, Guard Up had its cooldown reduced, so you can use this more often, and the buff effect extended a little bit. So you can get a good amount of that temporary hit point shield kicking in pretty much all the time. To move on and kind of complement with this, Into the Fray, which is an effect which gives you stats, damage, PRR, MRR, whenever you go into combat. Well, this effect only used to reoccur if you were out of combat for 10 seconds, which is difficult because you're pretty much always in combat. However, now it's only if you're out of combat for 3 seconds, which means if you're an aggressive tank, this will be up pretty much all the time, which is very satisfying. Then Spark of Life was added some hit points, because you may not have, or you may not want the death block effect, but you would want some extra hit points. I mean, 25 hit points is 25 hit points, so here it is right here. And then moving up the tree, I think everything else is pretty much the same, except for the tier 5. Previously they had Reborn in the Light, however that has been changed. Now they have Undying Vanguard again. However, Undying Vanguard actually makes yourself bigger, so your character model gets larger on the screen. It does not actually extend your attack range, which would be cool, but it does not. However, it also gives you +5 weapon dice for 30 seconds. These weapon dice continue even if you lose your temporary hit points. So that means that your tank is now going to be hitting like a truck while you have Undying Vanguard, and you're going to be very big. Again, they want to work on the more active attack angle, and if you're somebody who enjoys playing tank-type characters, but are not a big fan of the, intimidate and then hold the block button, you'll really like some of these changes. Draconic Incarnation received a few overhauls as well. Kind of take a look at that briefly here. Number 1, Attune the Arcane had its cooldown actually reduced. I believe it's only 6 seconds here, not 10, so you're going to be hitting that way more often than you would otherwise imagine. Additionally, there's a new ability here called Improved Dragon Breath. A lot of people missed Energy Burst because they liked Energy Burst over Dragon Breath. Well, now, you get Dragon Breath at, right away. Later on, you get the option to either have double damage on Dragon Breath, or you can get Energy Burst that also deals double damage. So you can't have Energy Burst and Dragon Breath, but if you want Burst back because you don't like the cone shape of breath, you can have double damage on Energy Burst, or you can just have double damage on Dragon Breath, and it converts it over. Or you can get Energy Vortex instead. And since this has a short cooldown, this is 100% uptime on Energy Vortex. I tested this out on an Eldritch Knight, and it was amazing how much damage I was able to deal in an area of effect, especially all spell damage, and combining that with the Spell Sword, I was a very happy camper. Additionally, you now have Dragon Speed because these effects effectively switched places. The mobile spell casting is no longer going to be on tier 2. Instead, it has the damage reduction bypass on spells. And again, 15 might not seem like a big number, but this 15 is affecting the base, not your scaled. So if a monster has 50 damage reduction against a spell, or let's just say 15 for all intents and purposes, and you cast a fireball, well, if your fireball only does 100 damage base, and then you multiply it out with spell power up to 1000 damage or whatever, which feels really good, the problem is that 50 in damage reduction hits that 100, takes you down to 85, and then you're only getting 850. So you might think to yourself, oh, I'm actually, only losing 15 damage, who cares? No, you're actually losing 150 damage because of the way that it does the work here. It is addition and subtraction before multiplication. So this effect is actually pretty substantial, and you can get it very early in the tree. And then you have Dragon Speed up here, which gives you spell cooldown reduction, as well as mobile spellcasting and movement speed if you have that. Everything else here is pretty much the same. I think the only exception is maybe the Dragon Form. Oh yes, Dragon Form used to have like a scaling thing where you would get more powerful as time would go on. Now it's just for the whole 30 seconds. You get the immunity, you get the damage reduction, you get the half spell cost, and your spells have a chance to turn a non-boss enemy to gold permanently, adding them to your horde with no save. This procs all the time. It says a chance. It's like 25% chance. It goes off all the time. Very, very, very insanely strong. So very cool ability. And also Hellball is still here, but Hellball is getting a buff. So if you're like, oh, but Hellball sucks. It does suck, but it is getting a buff, so don't worry about that. And then Primal Avatar, the last Epic Destiny that we saw last time. How is it changed and how is it updated? It's not really changed or updated. It's pretty much the same thing. The only big difference I can see is that there's this ability here, which is the Primal Intensity. Basically, there was an effect here that used to give you bonus spell power if you were in a form. It was like a form mastery. So if you were in any elemental form, you would get bonus elemental spell power. If you're an animal form, you got more defenses. That has been removed because I'm guessing they don't care about people being in forms for this tree. So instead, it just has the Primal Intensity. So it gives you spell power based on each of the individual cores that you have. As a Primal Avatar, you can be a Heart, a Sky, or a Thorn Primal Avatar. And so then you can pick that spell power type. However, it's not a multi-selector here. Instead, it just has 3 points that you put in for each one, which I think is wrong. It's probably supposed to be 5, 10, and 15 spell power for the ones that you want. However, this is a bug currently, and on the server, it's giving you 1500 spell power of each type, which is a bit of a problem. But overall, Primal Avatar was an extremely powerful tree, like literally just amazingly strong. So I'm not too worried about this effect getting fixed. I'm sure they'll put the multi-selector in and it should be good. But in that, Primal Avatar, very, very strong. So overall, making the adjustment in comparison between some of the older trees and some of the newer ones, you can see here that there's been a lot of adjustments and changes, especially to some of the more melee-oriented trees. We have Grandmaster of Flowers coming back with some of these crazy powers. Everything is Nothing, obviously a fan favorite, coming back into the tree. and then Split the Soul over here, just being extremely strong options. Unyielding Sentinel getting a lot more damage and a lot more variability in terms of being able to, deal out some of the damage and stuff. Legendary Dreadnaught coming in with Action Hero, lasting so long and being ridiculous, and even more tactical DCs. Overall, I'm really excited about these changes, and I think they're pretty good. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. If you liked the video, please subscribe, as I'm going to be posting more of that content. And catch you guys next time. Goodbye.